Hey everybody, it's Shaman Sister Sin, and you're listening to the Meditations and More podcast brought to you by littleshaman.org. That's me, Little Shaman. Today I wanted to talk to you about how to stop blaming the narcissist. Now, this doesn't mean not to hold them accountable for the things they've done wrong, so don't misunderstand me. We're talking about not holding them responsible for your feelings, choices, or reactions. The truth is that pathologically narcissistic people often do terrible things. They can be abusive, selfish, inconsiderate, rude, childish, irresponsible. They will do things purposely to upset and hurt others, and they take pleasure in sabotaging people. They may be physically abusive, verbally cruel, and emotionally neglectful. Some seem to have literally no redeeming qualities whatsoever. But they are not in control of your behavior. It can be tempting to blame them for your actions or your feelings, especially when they're really provoking you. But this is no more fair than them blaming you for theirs. If you give responsibility for your behavior and emotions to another person, you're allowing them to control you. You're saying to them, you control the way I feel and the way I act. Is the message you want to send to a narcissist really that they have control over you? Your actions are your responsibility and your feelings are as well. It is true that people's opinion of someone is usually based on the way this person behaves, so it's therefore true that the way the narcissist has treated you probably has a lot to do with how you feel about them. However, how you behave because of your feelings is your responsibility. For example, if someone is using guilt to manipulate you and then you cave in to their demands because of that guilt, it's natural to want to blame them, but again, doing so gives them responsibility and therefore control over your actions. You need to take that power back and be able to say, I did this because I wanted to, or I felt like it was the right decision at the time, or I didn't do this because I didn't want to and I didn't feel like it was the right decision at the time. You can't be manipulated if others cannot control you through your emotional reactions and you do things for your own reasons. I remember years ago when my nephew, who is now over 20 years old, was a toddler, my sister would always ask my dad for money. Now, we were both adults with our own families, she and I. She always had an emergency or a sob story, whether it was that she had to rush her child to the doctor, but she had no gas, or she had to buy diapers and she only had one left. There was always some reason why she desperately needed money. She would take the money that he would give her and she would spend it on herself because she didn't really need it for what she said she needed it for. I, of course, thought this was wrong, and I finally said to my father, Dad, you know, she's not using that money you give her for what she says that it's for. And he said to me, I cannot be manipulated. If I give your sister money, it's because I want to give her money, not because of anything she tells me. In other words, she might have thought that she was manipulating or controlling him, but she wasn't because he didn't really care what her story was or what she did with the money. If he wanted to give it to her, he did. If he didn't want to, he didn't. His choice was not based on her reasons, but on his own. Because of this, it didn't bother him that she was using the money for something other than what she said it was for. He had given it to her because he wanted to, and he had no motivation other than that. He was responsible for his own behavior and not hers, so he was fine with the situation because he did what he wanted to do for his own reasons. He wanted to give her the money, and he gave it to her, and that's as far as it went. The act was its own reward. What happened after that was what happened after that. You have that same power, even if you don't realize it. You have a choice, even if it doesn't seem like it. The narcissist has no actual power over you in the end. It's your feelings that have power over you. The narcissist is just using them to get their way. As with most things that have to do with narcissistic people, the biggest battle is not with them, it's with yourself. Mastering your emotional reactions to things is very difficult for many people, but it's infinitely harder if you've convinced yourself that it's out of your control or that other people have to change their behavior before you can change yours. This is one of the biggest reasons that pathologically narcissistic people often have so much trouble changing their behavior. Even if they wanted to, they don't believe they have control over their own behavior or feelings. They believe the problem is the behavior of other people and that they're just reacting to what other people are doing to them. Now, it's easy to say that narcissists are wrong when they blame others for their actions because a lot of times no one's actually doing anything to them. But what if someone did do something to them? Are they still wrong for blaming that person for their own actions? The answer is yes. In reality, How people react to something is totally up to them. You may feel justified, and you may even be justified. You may feel pressured, and you may even be being pressured, but that doesn't make it someone else's decision. It's yours. And that's where the power is. This is not really about blaming the narcissist in and of itself. It's not even really about the narcissist at all. It's about you taking the power back and accepting that you're in control of your own reactions and your own choices. When people truly realize this, the result is often a total shift in the way they see the world. Life becomes so much more peaceful and so much easier in so many ways. A lot of people find this very difficult at first, and some even get angry. They mistakenly believe that taking responsibility for their own actions somehow relieves the narcissist of responsibility. This isn't the case. They are responsible for the things they've done, just like you are. They may not accept that, but it doesn't matter. You don't have to take responsibility for them or for their behavior. They need to carry it themselves, just like everybody else. The truth is, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. Nobody does. If you choose to do something, then you chose to do it, and that's that. The reasons only matter as much as they matter. If the narcissist in your life used guilt on you to try to get you to do something, for example, they didn't force you to do it. You chose to do it to alleviate the guilt that you were feeling. Now, whether that guilt was justified or fair is another story, but in the end, you chose to do it and the reasons were your own. The key is to acknowledge this so that you can change it by gaining control over your emotions and putting the power back in your own hands. This is easier said than done, but it's not as hard as you think it is, and the results are so worth it. People in any type of relationship with a pathologically narcissistic person often feel trapped and helpless. They feel manipulated and controlled. However, once they realize that they are largely being controlled by their own emotions, this takes a lot of the narcissist's power away. For example, what if the narcissist is threatening or physically abusive? Except in the most extreme situations, there are still opportunities for the victim to escape the situation. They often don't, and they have their own reasons why they don't. Sometimes that reason is fear of the abuser, but very often it has nothing to do with fear at all. Rather, it's things like guilt or the misguided belief that they're responsible for the abuser. They may feel that they can help the abuser. They may be afraid that the abuser will harm themselves if they leave. They might be afraid that they can't make it alone or that the abuser can't make it alone. They might not want to go to a shelter or impose upon their friends. They might be ashamed and embarrassed for anybody to find out. So they choose to stay, and it is a choice. Now, this isn't intended to judge anybody. We all know why people stay in this type of relationship, and no one here is going to judge. This is truth being related to make a point, and the point is that even though you might feel trapped and controlled, you're not. It's up to you whether you choose to believe that or whether you don't. When you realize that the narcissist has not actually forced you to do anything, you realize that that's because they can't. You made the choices you made for your own reasons. If you can reduce your decisions to this very simple equation, it becomes a lot easier to deal with things. There's no struggle with who to blame or feeling controlled or anything else. You can look at the situation and say, I did this because I wanted to, or I felt I needed to, or I felt that it was the best decision at the time for whatever reason I had. It was my decision. No one made me do it. No one controls me. I chose to do it, and whether it was a good choice or a bad choice, I was in control of that. It isn't easy to admit that you have a part in such a terrible, toxic situation. It isn't easy to acknowledge that you're responsible for your own decisions, especially if you believe they were bad ones. It isn't easy to accept that you're not being controlled by anything but your own feelings. However, in this way, by taking responsibility, by taking control, you empower yourself to truly take control of your own life and make better decisions in the future. Remember, mastering your emotional reactions to things can be very difficult, but it's going to be impossible if you've already convinced yourself that it's out of your control completely. It isn't, and once you realize that, life is going to get a whole lot simpler. I hope this clears a few things up for you. As always, I look forward to your comments, questions, and suggestions, so please keep those coming. I take appointments online or over the phone, so if you're interested in speaking with me one-on-one, you can visit littleshaman.org and click the Bookings tab to schedule an appointment, or you can use the link that's down there in the information section of this video. You've been listening to the Meditations and More podcast brought to you by littleshaman.org. That's me, the Little Shaman. May the Great Spirit bless you and have a wonderful day.